Hi there, it's Ian Shapiro at Syracuse University. I'm going to talk about a possible tiered impact reduction strategy for refrigerants. It's almost an acronym called TIERS. And what's this about? We're seeing good progress with refrigerants in terms of reducing global warming potential, GWP. The predominant current refrigerant 410A, is being phased out in favor of two primary options for heat pumps, both of which have less than a third of the global warming potential. This is good. It's good, and it's also relative. It's relative. What does the environment see? The environment sees a relative improvement. But from the environment's perspective, I would argue that the progress is relative. From the environment's perspective, even this refrigerant 454B is 100% bad. And what we need to get to is zero impact. And the lesson we learned with refrigerant 22, the legislation for refrigerant 22 was in 1990. By 1996 or 97, we were already seeing equipment, new equipment. And in subsequent years, it was totally replaced. So from here to today, this increase in concentration of refrigerant 22 in the atmosphere is all leakage. We've gone from about 90 parts per trillion, I believe the units are, almost tripled just due to leakage. And the prior installations of refrigerant 22 goes back to 1960s, it's 40 years. And the atmospheric concentration was still only under 100. And today heading towards 300. So we need better leak prevention. And unfortunately, in the US, our regulations are very weak. EPA standard 608 is a certification that's required. It's cheap, it's easy, it's open book, it lasts forever, and it doesn't require practical skills, brazing, knowledge. Overseas, the regulations are much more stringent, and the fines are much greater. We see in Japan, it's treated as a craft. It's a very, very important thing to do. The good news is that states can and do pass more stringent regulations, and we need to do the same. So that for New York State, for Massachusetts, the Northeast, any state that is interested to reduce this impact should pass more stringent regulation. And when the US EPA catches up, hopefully they'll do the same. We also need harmonized practices. Manufacturers each have their own requirements. ACA has a national standard, has an ANSI standard, and BPI has a standard that's great. NEEP has a standard. None of them are harmonized. We need a good, strong, harmonized, stronger set of requirements. We need documentation requirements for all of these very important steps. I reviewed this with my colleague John Harrod a few years ago in ASHRAE Journal, and that's refrigerant leak prevention. Next up, we have some emerging heat pump systems that are new. And it raises the question, can going to these systems reduce refrigerant leak impact? And the answer is yes. Why? Because the large split systems have more refrigerant, so potentially more refrigerant can leak out, more joints, and they're more complex. It's harder to find and repair a leak. These systems in a large building can have miles of copper piping with joints. Smaller systems have fewer joints, less refrigerant, and they're easier to find joints. If there's a refrigerant leak, it's usually limited to a small area of the building, to one hotel room or one apartment or a few offices. And then these emerging equipment types that don't have any field connections at all. And our risk of refrigerant leak and less refrigerant, the risk of refrigerant leaks goes down even farther. So the answer is yes. By choosing different heat pump types, and this would be true also of the monoblock, the air-to-water system. By choosing different refrigerant types, we can reduce refrigerant leak impact. What else can we do? My good friend Lori, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and she said, Ian, how about we reduce the building load? And this reminded me, this has been a first best practice. Of course, if we reduce the building load, a more insulated building, a more energy efficient building will require smaller heat pump equipment and less refrigerant. Absolutely the first thing we should do. And then finally, we've been wrestling with something, and that is we can't get room equipment that is small enough. The indoor fan coils, the small packaged equipment, the through-wall equipment, you cannot get any of that equipment in less than about a half a ton, maybe 5,000 BTU per hour at smallest. And many rooms built to current codes have lower loads than that. They're down in the 2,000 or 3,000 BTU per hour. A high performance building, a passive house building, might have a room load of 1,000 BTUs per hour, even in a cold climate. We need smaller room equipment. And this is a message for manufacturers. What if we combine these strategies? What if we did more than one of these things? What would be the potential reduction in refrigerant leak impact? And so this is where we came up with this idea of this acronym TIERS, a tiered impact reduction strategy. We're going to layer one or more of these things. And I made a rough estimate of what we could do. We start with a baseline building. This is a code compliant building with one of the good new refrigerants, low impact refrigerant. If we reduce the building load, let's say by 15%, we reduce the amount of refrigerant. If we go to distributed systems, that's smaller split systems, even for large buildings, dramatic reduction in leak potential from all of those multiple things, less refrigerant, fewer joints, less complexity in finding leaks. Refrigerant leak prevention best practices. I assigned this a small cumulative impact, maybe 1.5% reduced leaks over 15 years. And we have another reduction in leak impact. Now, if we go to factory packaged systems, this would be through wall, through window, packaged terminal equipment, monoblock equipment, rooftop equipment. We don't have any field joints, a dramatic reduction in impact. Smaller room equipment, this shows you how urgent that is. Smaller equipment, smaller equipment, smaller refrigerant charge. And we're getting, by this point, using current refrigerants, we can be over 95% reduced in our potential refrigerant impact. Meanwhile, we're asking the manufacturers to please work on these natural refrigerants that takes us all the way to zero. So tiered impact strategy, this is a conservative estimate in short order, immediately for many projects. We can be down in the 90% plus reduction with the goal of getting expeditiously within the next few years to 100%. How about large office buildings? Are we really going to go to small packaged room heat pumps? And I would say, don't be surprised. We just might. And my own prediction is that we will. That heat pumps will become a room appliance. We've done it before with fan coils, with unit heaters, with radiators, right, in rooms, with packaged terminal equipment. We've done it before. And until we do, my suggestion is that we do in the US what they do overseas at the very least. Smaller split systems, they recess balconies, they put very good looking louvers on them. And now you're no longer running miles of refrigerant piping down from the roof or up from the ground. Smaller, less complexity, better control, less refrigerant, easier to find a leak, less refrigerant will leak when there is a leak. And that is it. Thank you very much.